Actors from the last century are like vintage cars. Each one is unique, full of chrome, and comes in all shapes and forms. Unlike modern-day movie casts, who pretty much look alike, just like jelly bean cars made of plastic, you can't even guess what brand they are anymore. In this video, we will enjoy one of the finest examples of old-school classic acting style. There is no role too small or too big for this actor. In every supporting role, he often casts a huge shadow over the leading star of the show. They just don't make them like that anymore. Meet the Shakespearean giant from Sweden, Peter Stormare. And for any hardcore fans out there, his full name is Rolf Peter Ingvar Stormare, born Storm on August 27, 1953. Once again, a known face, loved performances, and rarely recognized by his name. The careers have been so good that he is mostly associated with his memorable roles rather than his own self. Maybe this is what separates the great from the mediocre? The only remaining top-tier level for him to conquer in Hollywood is to become a household name, but that's reserved for the selected few. Peter Stormare has an astonishing number of incredible roles. One could break the mouse wheel scrolling through his filmography in IMDb, and that's a great mix of comedy, drama, mystery, and everything else in between. Peter has over 200 roles under his belt, and it would be insane to cover all of them. And guess what? We are going to do just that. To keep this video under control, I wouldn't deep dive into every single film. Some will get more attention and others will receive nothing more than an honorable mention. It will be a long journey, so feel free to jump to whatever role is your personal favorite. But if you're here for the long haul, we are about to start from the very beginning.
Welcome everybody!
Peter is a bad boy with charming twist, and he really loves playing bad guys. He cannot stand characters with perfectly tuned moral compasses and outstanding ethics. Prince Charming never made it to Peter's wish list. It's a villain, all day, any day. What makes a casting director think of Peter when they go through their Rolodex of plausible candidates for a role? Is it his rugged look? His unique voice? His polished acting skills? Well, yes and no. There are three guiding stars for Peter. The first one is Royal Highness timing. He started his acting journey back when the movie industry was dealing with a lot of protests against minority casting. It was always people of color who would get the antagonist roles, but they were rarely given any interesting leading bad guy roles. Their talent was mostly reserved for playing third-tier crooks. So, one day, Hollywood decided to change course and pivot towards Russian and German stereotypes. Mostly because actors from Russia, to be more accurate, it was USSR in the 80s, and Germany were never on strike, and they loved to portray tough guys. It was hilarious when producer would call up someone from Europe and ask Peter if he spoke, for example, Hungarian. Oh yes, yeah, I sure do. The funny thing is, producers would never hear the difference between any of the languages from Eastern Europe. To the good old American ear, they all sounded the same. Most of the time, the actor who had to say something in foreign language would mumble a couple of words that loosely resembled a heavy Slavic accent. And it was perfect, because the very next second the script would either jump to English subtitles or simply include the line, "Let's continue in English." It was an easy sell for Peter. Peter's background is in theater. He started at the Royal Dramatic Theatre in Stockholm, where he had the pleasure of playing a lot of strange characters. It was somewhat weird and funky for him to keep switching his personality between theater and normal life. For some, it may be a challenge, but for Peter, he loved it. The lucky star number 2, for some reason, in the eyes of Hollywood producers, a European guy would be the embodiment of menace, hence, the perfect candidate to play a character with no lines to say. All you need to do is look serious and release terror. But what if there is an actual dialogue to carry? Oh boy, what a treat! Anything sounds like imminent danger with an Eastern European accent. Actually, I could very well relate to that. When I speak in my native tongue and say the nicest things to my friend, An outsider might think we are on the verge of a Mortal Kombat fight. It's just the way the language sounds, much sharper and louder compared to soft American pronunciation. Try to sound intimidating with a Norwegian accent. It sounds cuddly, no matter what you say. Maybe this is why the Vikings were pillaging everything in their way. Nobody would take them seriously? They sounded so pleasant until the axe splits you in half. Ouch! Could you have just said it in a meaner way in the first place? We could have been friends. The more you travel east, the more intimidating everything begins to sound. A simple hello could be interpreted as, "Now, give me your wallet." By the way, did you know that Peter is considered to be in an elite villain club of 4? The people who could deliver the scary lines in the most deceiving way possible, and yet you can feel the underlying fear building under your skin. The members of the club are John Malkovich, William Dafoe, Christopher Walken, and Peter Stormare. When Peter was asked how would he rank the club members, he placed Christopher Walken first, himself in the second place, followed by John Malkovich and closing with William Dafoe. There was one time when Peter was asked to play James Bond main villain. Unfortunately, he turned the offer down. Too bad, that would have been one heck of a ride. The reason he turned the role down was because he never understood James Bond. To him, it's the lamest thing ever. Okay, don't shoot the messenger, but I might be in the same boat with Peter on this one. When he imagined the movie, all Peter thought was, I will come up to James Bond, threaten his life, and everybody in the audience would know that my character will end belly up in some forsaken river, eliminated in the most horrifying way possible. His character would stand no chance against Bond from the start. It is boring formula, but still works rather well. Also, Peter does not like neither cars, nor expensive watches or other flashy fancy things. He isn't fascinated by something that is painted with numbers. Hence, all those shiny things from Bond franchise weren't much appealing to his taste. Anyways, James Bond always survives, there is no twist to the story, he's always safe, and this wasn't something Peter felt like entertaining at the time. Peter spent most of his childhood alone, sitting in the locker room, staring at dim-stinning lights, or sitting in the dark closet listening to an AM radio given to him by his father, picking up signals from all over the world and dreaming of traveling the universe, meeting aliens and catching UFOs. His mother was a psychic, so she had no problem with those ideas and let Peter be who he was, a strange kid with big, vivid dreams. There weren't any police stations in his town, so he couldn't listen to the police's usual chatter. Instead, he would tune his antenna to catch the chatter of ships passing over Baltic Sea or airplanes crossing the land. It was in all kinds of languages, and he loved to mimic those weird accents. And yet, his biggest passion when he was just a boy was movies. Any chance he got, Peter would go to the movie theater and spend all of his small savings on tickets. Even though he was only 5 years old, somehow Peter always knew that he would end up in America. He even told his parents about it. As any parent, their knee-jerk reaction was dismissive. After all, it was just a kid talking. But Peter already had a big, detailed, well-crafted plan. I'm going to live next to Disneyland and make my way into the movie industry. Don't forget, he lived in a tiny town where the simple thought of becoming an actor would lead to public humiliation, rolling in tar and feathers, and being bullied to no end by his schoolmates. Being part of a small village community meant you had to be exactly like everybody else, or your life would become unbearable. Naturally, he kept this idea within the family until he finally had a chance to see a play in Stockholm when he was already 20 years old. This was his very first introduction to theater. It was exactly what he had dreamed about. He could finally be who he wanted to be, free of shackles and judgment, a refugee who found his people, his place. Peter went into drama school, and a couple of years later, he became an apprentice at the National Theatre of Sweden, which was based in Stockholm. At first, he was mostly involved with backstage prep work, which gave him an excellent exposure to the behind-the-scene magic, how it is all done before the curtains go up. Even after enrolling in the Royal Academy of Acting, he continued to work at the theater, needing to earn money to pay for tuition, food, and a roof over his head. After another 3 years of training, he was finally hired as a full-time actor at the very same National Theatre of Sweden. At first, there was some tension between Peter and the seasoned actors because they used to treat him as an assistant while they played the lead roles. And now, he was the one who was rapidly becoming the star of the theater, pushing them aside. But we've jumped a little too far ahead. Let's go back to dreams of leaving Sweden. While Peter was nurturing his big plans, what do you know? His parents actually decided to leave country. His father was an inventor who traveled a lot, and one year he was slapped with taxes, forcing him to pay 112% of his paycheck. It was the final straw that made Peter's father resent Sweden and decide to move the heck out. The family toured all over the world, USA, Great Britain, Germany, and one day his father said, "Enough of this crap, we are going to Nigeria." Peter was 16 at the time, and he thought, sure, I'm still in high school, I have to finish it, but I'll come by and visit you from time to time. His father was quite a character. They were in the sauna when his father dropped the bomb. They were sitting there steaming when, all of a sudden, Peter's father leaned over and said, "I've decided we are going to Nigeria." Say what? Yeah, I got a good thing going there. Some construction, road building and whatnot. So, are you coming with us or staying behind to finish school? Well, being 16 years old, all Peter wanted to do was play soccer, meet girls, and drink beer. Nigeria didn't sound all that appealing from the look of it. And so Peter was left behind while his parents moved out to pursue their luck in Africa. For Peter, his Nigeria was always America, where to this day he is very happy to stay and work. Though his heart warms up whenever he speaks of his hometown, Arbra, free of danger and worries. Nowadays, he doesn't miss Sweden that much. He misses his home in Los Angeles when he travels the world or is shooting a movie. As Peter would say, in America, all you need to do is drive for 2 hours and get to Sweden. Forests, big trees, brown and black bears, it reminds him of his homeland. Peter had always dreamed of coming to live in America. He is an American now, and proud of being an American. And so how did Peter end up in America? While working in the National Theatre of Sweden, there was the Swedish American Institute, where one could get a grant and attend international academies. Peter applied for it and received a scholarship to go to the US and study abroad for 1 year. In fact, he applied for the same grant for 5 years straight, and each year he couldn't go because of his commitment to National Theatre, which was his job after all. Only after playing a part in Ingmar Bergman production, which opened the doors for many other actors who toured with him to various festivals all over the world, did Peter finally get his chance. They went everywhere: Moscow, China, Japan, the US, and all over the Europe. When they were in US, one of the places they performed for 2 weeks was the Little Theater in Los Angeles, where they played Miss Julie. During those 2 weeks, Peter had a chance to meet a lot of agents, and one of them was Gene Presedian, asked Peter to become one of his clients. Peter was finally exposed to the world of producers, directors, and casting agents. He couldn't be happier. To this day, when Peter passes that little place in LA, he prays and thanks it for the miracle. In 1987, Peter moved to New York, where he subleased a small place from a friend and began his never-ending trials called Auditions. Not much was happening until 1989, when he scored a role in a play called Rasputin. It made quite a wave in off-Broadway community. Immediately, Peter got a call from another agent, the legendary Sam Cohen, who managed some big stars and now wanted Peter to become part of his flock. He was really good to Peter, even lending him some rent money when the times were rough. This was actually common back then. By 1990, Peter finally started making enough to get his own small place with no need for financial aid. But before America, his movie appearances kicked off with the Swedish movie called Lifted 1978, directed by Andres Lundbro. It is about an incompetent thief and petty criminal, Lance to even the score, which is not in his favor. Peter played a small role of an unnamed prisoner. I have tried to identify Peter within the cast, and after carefully watching through the prison footage, I cannot definitively conclude if I recognized him. And for everybody else, I would not recommend looking for him in that movie, for your own sake. Let's just say this was not exactly the strongest stepping stone in a rising career. Perhaps he was not in that movie at all, and it's just a mistake in the film database, or some other actor with the same name. We'll leave it at that. There were a couple other minor roles in various Swedish TV movies and series in Peter's early career. In 1979 Swedish time period drama TV series Salam, Peter plays a farmhand in a story about ruthless children of Salam's family. In the 1983 Swedish TV movie Students, Peter played the role of Gosta. The film follows the story of a young man celebrating his graduation, and it explores the emotions and experiences associated with leaving school and stepping into adulthood. In 1983 Swedish comedy crime series The Scouts, the show follows a group of quirky and unconventional detectives who are tasked with solving crimes, often in humorous and absurd situations. Peter was one of many extras not credited for the part. In 1983 Swedish comedy TV series Amazed Observers, Peter played the character of a parking attendant, which was part of the show's absurd humor. His role was marked by his typically offbeat and eccentric performance, which quickly became a highlight in the series. The role that set Peter on the right path was 1983 mini-TV series called Fanny and Alexander, as young man who helped Isaac with coffee. The role was rather small and with only few, no more than 5 lines, mostly "Yes sir," "No sir," "Thank you," and "I need to go sir." But it gave him a chance to get to know Ingmar Bergman, the director with whom Peter collaborated for over 15 years. It was originally a TV series and later reduced down to 3 hours movie for theatrical release. At the time it was the largest film production ever in Sweden, with 60 speaking parts and over 1,200 extras, and the most expensive, with a budget of $6 million. In 1984 it took 4 Oscars, including Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction Set Decoration, Best Costume Design, and Best Foreign Language Film. On set, Peter and Ingmar had a huge fight. It was over a line and who was supposed to deliver it. Peter thought it was better done by another actor, but Ingmar got very angry and went ballistic at Peter. Imagine that, a virtually unknown 23 years old actor dictating to the director how to set a scene. All other actors and extras quickly cleared the room. Nobody wanted to be part of this unfolding drama, leaving Peter standing alone in the middle of the huge stage. A few minutes later, after giving it some thought, Ingmar came back and Peter thought, "This is it, the end of my fabulous career as an actor. I just finished at the academy and now I'm about to go work as a mailman back in my small village for the rest of my life." But instead, Ingmar hugged Peter and said, "You were right. Let's do it your way. Let's try that. I'm cool with it." This was the moment when Ingmar saw something in Peter. It could be because he spoke his mind and stood by it, or maybe because it was a good idea to begin with. Who knows? But they became dear friends. Another director could have just fired Peter on the spot. Funny thing is, at the time of the argument, Ingmar didn't even know Peter's name. He was just an extra with a couple of lines. Later on, Ingmar would ask Peter to tell this story when they were among other people he liked it that much. Between 1983 and 1990, Peter was hopping from one project to another trying to stay afloat, barely scraping enough cash for food, rent, and other basic needs. Any role was a good role. Can't be picky living from check to check. 1984 Swedish time period drama The Wooden Cartridges featured Peter in the role of a bookkeeper. This historical drama series revolves around the Swedish timber industry during the 19th century. The next project was in the 1986 Swedish film Boomerang, with Kevin Anderson in the lead. Movie was later re-released in 1992, and not to be confused with the well-known Eddie Murphy's 1992 Boomerang. Peter played the role of the driver, a character who is involved in an action-packed story. It is Swedish crime drama that follows the main character's struggles and dangerous encounters. 1986 Swedish family drama Seppan. This TV movie revolves around the lives of a group of people in a small, close-knit community. Peter played the role of a character named Borge as Sarah's father. 1986 Swedish drama The Frozen Leopard as Jerry. A movie about two brothers who meet again after a few years away from each other. Jerry has been in prison for petty crimes but has now decided to try to live honestly and build a family. Kiljan is a dreamer who lives a life of bohemian. Actually, this was one of Peter's first movie with a significant screen time as a supporting actor. This is him playing a guitar. As a musician, it wasn't a problem for Peter to jam few riffs and licks on screen. Then he took parts in 1987 Pirates of the Lake as beekeeper. This is a Swedish comedy with elements of adventure. While Peter's character isn't central to the main plot, he has more than enough screen time to add to the colorful plotline. In 1990 Prisoners of Fort Boyard as Captain Kaboom, a popular Swedish adaptation of the French game show. Peter took on larger-than-life comedic persona, which was excellent additions to the roles list right before the first big break. In 1990 From the Dead, Peter plays the character called Shakespearean. This Swedish crime drama that was later made available internationally in 1995 revolves around a complex plot, with Stormare's role being particularly intriguing. The character Shakespearean is chess enthusiast, and his role in the story is tangled with theme of manipulation and strategy, fitting the chess motif. The name Shakespearean is play on words, combining Shak, chess in Swedish, and the name Shakespeare, referring to the character's intellect and philosophical outlook. The first major movie Peter was casted for, called Awakenings, with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro in the lead. In 1990 medical biography drama Awakenings, Peter plays the role of a neurochemist. The film is based on the true story of Dr. Oliver Sacks' book Awakenings. It focuses on the experiences of patients who have been in a vegetative state for many years and are temporarily awakened through a groundbreaking drug treatment. Stormare's character plays a supporting role in the medical team working with Dr. Malcolm Sayer. He is involved in the scientific and medical aspects of the experimental treatment, contributing to the neurochemical research that leads to the patient's temporary recovery. His role is more of a technical one, focusing on the scientific approach to the treatment, adding to the film's realistic portrayal of the medical challenges involved in the story. The movie was not a big success at the box office, grossing just over $52 million on $31 million budget. But critics and public loved the movie. It earned several nominations, including Academy Awards nominations for Best Picture, Best Actor in Supporting Role, and Best Adapted Screenplay. This was Peter's first officially credited big Hollywood film, which opened doors to a higher level of movie industry production, the penthouse floor, so-called A-movies. This is how Fargo was made possible for Peter, cementing his position in the Hollywood hierarchy ladder. Awakenings was the accelerant to his massive movie career, with opportunities to choose between big and small projects, playing a lot of vivid characters. His preferences were always small projects with supporting roles. Peter never had a taste for leading parts. His plan was to make 6 to 7 projects a year, TV shows, movies, but no more stage work. After doing it for 10 years, he was done with the theater, at least being on stage. As Peter would say, doing theater is the most demanding performance for an actor, way harder than any movie. You have to be top-notch, your very best every single night, no excuses. Every time you step off stage, you begin to doubt your performance. Could it have been better? Was this enough? It eats you up. Some actors may be satisfied with their performance, but Peter would always question if there was anything to improve.
I'm just a chemist, doctor. You're the physician. I'll leave it to you to do the damage.
Between Awakenings and Fargo, there were several more roles. 1991, Freud leaving home as Bera, a supporting role in the Swedish drama comedy. Angelique, aka Freud, still lives at home and uses her knowledge of psychology to make poisonous comments about the others. The movie is pretty much mostly known in Sweden. 1991 Italian movie Reflections in a Dark Sky. Peter plays Carlo, intense character in a moody atmosphere of a film. The movie is a psychological thriller that delves in the darker aspects of human psyche, focusing on themes of isolation and internal conflicts. In the 1999 film Damage, Peter played a character called Peter Wetzler. The film, directed by Louis Malle, is a psychological drama and thriller about British politician who becomes involved in scandalous affair with his son's fiancée. Peter is sharing screen with the lead Jeremy Irons and holding his own during the scenes was one of his first notable international appearances in the featured film. The movie did okay commercially, consider its taboo theme, earning $30 million on $20 million budget. Over time, the movie also gained small cult following. 1993, The Bacchanalian Hills. Peter took role as the messenger, another great collaboration with Ingmar Bergman. This Swedish TV movie is a drama with comedic elements set in rural community where various characters struggle with their personal issues and expectations. In 1993, Swedish drama comedy Mother's Heritage. It combines element of satire with serious emotional moments. Peter plays Captain Bergqvist, somewhat eccentric and commanding figure. 1995 TV series Screen 2 as Beard. It was an anthology series with mix of psychological drama and thriller elements that featured different stories and genres, with each episode presenting a unique narrative. All of these roles and appearances were pretty much a waiting room before his grand entrance onto the Hollywood stage as a major player. 1996 Fargo. When Peter got the script, he noticed that he only had a few lines. "Why so little?" he asked the director. "You don't think I can do more?" "Oh no," said the Coen brothers. "This is just the way this guy is. His character is based on a real person who never says anything and just chain smokes, even falls asleep while still smoking. He's the guy from our childhood, and that's the way he's supposed to be, that's the way he was." Peter knew Steve Buscemi from 1990 Miller's Crossing movie, in which Peter was actually offered a role but had to turn it down because his bosses back at the Swedish National Theatre could care less about him being part of the Coen's brother film. When they also prevented him from working with Wim Wenders' movies, that was the last straw, and he ditched the theater. It was time to leave it behind. And that was at his theatrical peak. Peter had the right to pick and choose any roles at the theater, anything he wanted. Even though he had a golden contract for life, he ripped it apart and wrote a letter of resignation. Peter promised to honor his current obligations for the next 3 months, and after that, they'd have to find a replacement for him because he was out. Ingmar Bergman was furious with Peter, but reminded him that it was Ingmar who had told him to follow his dreams, and that was what he had set out to do. All Bergman had to say was to make sure Peter had a return ticket. Peter replied with an excellent line. "In my life, I don't and wouldn't want to have a return ticket. The only direction is forward." Peter's decision did not poison the well. They preserved their friendship. Peter and Ingmar had such a special connection, nothing would tear them apart. Even after Bergman passing, Peter would still talk to him in spirit, discussing problems and asking for guidance. Okay, it was a bit off topic. Back to Fargo. While Fargo was still in post-production, the New York Film Festival committee asked Joel Cohen to have the film ready for the unveiling. Joel called up all the actors and dropped the news that they were invited to the festival, but they weren't quite ready yet. The film still needed color grading, music, and other finishing touches. They had to complete everything by mid-December to make the February premiere at the festival. Upon finishing the film cut and sending it off for approval, the committee returned the film. They included a letter that stated that reason for rejection was it wasn't up to the standard the New Yorker Film Festival stood for. To say the crew went into a deep state of depression is an understatement. The studio was in shock. There was no PR campaign, no marketing, nothing. The film was sent to theater as is. And what do you know? It took off like a rocket. This should tell you something about critics and their credibility. They were the main source of reviews for upcoming movies back then, and audiences had no internet to turn to for the alternative opinions. In 1997, the movie won 2 Oscars and had 3 additional nominations. It was a huge success with the Academy and at the box office, making over $60 million worldwide on just $7 million budget. To this day, Peter couldn't stop arguing about who should have won Best Picture that year. The winner was The English Patient. As Peter says, boring, but anything from England is sacred in the US. He has his own unique perspective on the whole bowing down to English culture, and being from Europe makes Peter immune to that charm. Funny story about Fargo, well, more like because of Fargo. One day Peter met with a director who wanted to make a movie with Mel Gibson in the lead. The project had $80 million budget, quite a healthy chunk of change. The director asked Peter if he could play a villain role. It was a small part, nothing extraordinary, just the typical Hollywood formula. You meet Gibson at the beginning of the movie, a little in the middle, and then have the final face-off at the end, where your character meets his demise. Standard heroes versus villains setup. Eliminate the oppressor and hooray for the liberator. The director asked Peter, "What do you think of the part?" Peter replied, "Well, not much to think about. A little bit here, a little bit there, but I'm definitely looking forward to work with Mr. Gibson." The director, a bit more persistent, said, Right, but what do you think about the role? What could you do with it?" Peter, unsure of where this was going, asked, "Could you give me some points, suggestions?" The director said, "Sure. Have you watched Fargo?" There was a brief, awkward pause before Peter responded, "Yes, I have." The director continued, "Okay, so the actor in Fargo, I don't remember his name, but it's the one with the blonde hair?" Peter, a bit confused, said, "Oh yeah, I remember him," though he wasn't sure whether the director was joking or being serious. The director, totally serious, asked, "Great, do you think you could do something in that direction?" Peter, looking at him with a deadpan expression, replied, "No, I think it would be too hard for me." "Yes, definitely hard. It's completely impossible," before getting up and leaving the meeting. Needless to say, Peter was not impressed with the director. "What a complete idiot," he concluded. The movie went ahead, but of course, with a different actor. After Fargo, the attention to Peter was overwhelming. A flood of scripts, endless offers, and piles of money came in, but most of them were B-movie scripts from B-grade directors, all wanting Peter to replicate the character he played in Fargo, essentially repeating the same role over and over. Peter brought his concerns to his manager, and she explained that in Hollywood there are two paths: longevity and money. You either work in the industry until the day you die, or you make a quick grab for the biggest cash offer and run, she said. We can hype you up, keep reusing the same character until the offer well runs dry in 3 to 5 years, but I don't think that's what you want. She was right. Peter's interest lay firmly in the longevity path. All right then, she continued. We will turn down all these garbage offers and take on the projects you actually want to be part of without thinking about money. Let's focus on what you love. For the next several years, that is exactly what they did, picking films Peter was passionate about and waiting for something truly spectacular to come his way. While waiting for Fargo fame to fully kick in, Peter had a couple of more releases that year. From quick cameo in 1996 legal drama TV series Swift Justice as morally ambiguous character Johnny D. 1996 French psychological thriller The Polygraph. It's about a man named Fred who becomes obsessed with the idea of discovering the truth about a traumatic event from his past, using a lie detector to uncover hidden secrets. Peter played a supporting character, Christopher Hussman. In 1996, A Kind of Hades, about people living in madhouse, gradually relieving their deep problems with themselves and society. Peter plays one of the patients called Ulf. It was a slow burn until 1997, when Peter got the first taste of being part of the full-blown blockbuster, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, playing ruthless mercenary hunting dinosaurs. Small role, but who can forget his act? Short-lived but memorable. Rip Dieter Stark. There is a reason Spielberg casted Peter for the role. He was looking for someone audience would cheer to perish in thousand cuts way. In the scene where he was pursued by a horde of little dudes, he was asked to swear. Peter didn't really want to say anything in English, considering it was PG-13. Instead, they agreed to go at it in Swedish. Translation of his little monologue is hilarious. But in the end, in post-production voiceover, it was decided to just mimic the Swedish accent and keep it more or less civil. What he says in the final cut is, The Last World remains an actual curse. Funny, but it was left as is. Movie had a production budget of $73 million and made over $600 million worldwide. Smashing success. Another building block towards the worldwide appreciation, though from what I have read, many people still surprised to learn that he was in the movie. Same year, Peter starring in 1997 crime drama playing God. Small role of Vladimir, tagging along with David Duchovny and Angelina Jolie. The film explores the story of former surgeon who becomes involved in the criminal underworld, playing the role of doctor for criminals. Movie failed at the box office, collecting $4 million on $12 million budget. Critics and audience destroyed the movie in the reviews. Fortunately for Peter, as a supporting minor character, he was shielded from the consequences. 1997 Swedish movie In the Presence of Clown. Peter is helping out an old friend, Ingmar Bergman, playing a role of Petrus Lundahl. The film tells the story of the narrator who reflects on his experiences with the clown figure during his youth. Next year, he made one of the fan favorites, 1998 cult classic dark comedy The Big Lebowski, where he plays nihilist, Uli Kunkel. Peter landed the role due to his existing relationship with the Coen brothers making Fargo. The Coen brothers are known for reusing actors they enjoy working with, and also known for their quirky, offbeat casting choices, often selecting actors who can bring a unique presence to the screen. Peter's distinct deadpan delivery and unusual physical presence made him a perfect fit for the role for the eccentric, German-speaking nihilist. Peter also played a small role in mini-adult film as a cable repair guy, Carl Hongus. And for Peter, it was one of his most embarrassing roles ever. We will return to it a little later in the video. Movie made $46 million at the box office on just $15 million budget. That is a very good result. While critics weren't too sure what to do with the movie, The Big Lebowski has become one of the most beloved and quoted films of its era among fans. The 1998 action movie Hamilton left a rather bad taste in Peter's mouth, literally. In one scene where Mark Hamill's character, Hawkins, was hitting Hamilton, Mark accidentally struck Peter right in the face, knocking out a tooth. If you watch the footage, you'll see Mark and Peter sort of made up, and in the incident with the hug, Mark was genuinely sorry and concerned about Peter's injury. However, over time, it seems Peter wasn't quite as forgiving. He has a lot of not-so-nice things to say about Mark, idiot being the most polite term. The camera was positioned behind Mark, so there was no need for him to actually make contact with Peter's head. But Mark swung too hard, going way too high and connecting with Peter's nose. Peter ended up in local hospital for a few days to recover. According to Peter, Mark never apologized for the incident and reportedly avoided making any eye contact with him for the rest of the shoot. Personally, I'm not too sure about that. Behind-the-scene footage does not quite support it, but it was Peter who had suffered the injury, so that's how he sees it. Since then, Mark Hamill made it to the top of Peter's special black book, so there seems to be no love lost between the two. Hamilton performed poorly in terms of box office returns, made back less than half of its $3.5 million budget. Despite this, the film still gained critics and public recognition for its adaptation of Henning Menkel's work and Peter Stormare's performance as the lead. 1998 Mercury Rising. This action thriller movie production serves as one of many examples of how short-sighted studio executives could be. Peter landed one of the leading roles in the film with a nice paycheck and all, ready to dive into the work. But then his manager received a call stating that someone from upstairs had decided to replace Peter due to his non-American accent. Despite his manager's protest, the director had to obey the decision, following the studio head's direction. Instead of playing the lead role, driving cars, chasing and picking fights with Bruce Willis's character, Peter was given a much smaller role as a hitman. He tried to talk to someone higher up, but was denied an audience. Most likely, someone else's nephew or a friend of the studio executive needed the role. Connections in Hollywood often outweigh talent when it comes to securing parts. During the shoot, when he was acting on set in the same scene with Bruce, he would look at Willis and imagine the face of the studio executive who erased his chances to play an interesting role in the movie. Later, in an interview, the movie's director went on record to say that if Peter had been born in US with a perfect American accent, he would have been one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Unfortunately, the studio bosses simply couldn't see the potential. The movie made $92 million on $70 million budget, which isn't much. Critics did not fall in love with the film, and it did not receive strong word-of-mouth praise from public. In 1998 comedy drama Somewhere in the City, Peter has a chance to reveal that he has a lot more in him than a bad guy stereotype he plays in most Hollywood films. Some call this over-the-top stereotype of New Yorkers, and others call it brilliant and eccentric. As always, it is never a dull moment with Peter. This was an independent movie, its exact budget is not known, but we can speculate something in $2 million range, while making only $1.5 million. Critics were alright with the film, while public reception was rather underwhelming, which has reflected in the box office earnings. It never reached the cult classic status of some other late 90s indie films. Before we get to one of the iconic performances, there was one more special guest appearance. Slippery Pete in 1998 episode of Seinfeld TV sitcom called The Frogger. Peter was fitting in like he was regular to the show. First, Peter became an international star has finally arrived. It was called
Armageddon.
Because Bruce Willis was busy with other movies, the production of Armageddon began as scheduled but without the leading star. Just because Bruce was still tied up with another project for the next 2 weeks, that wasn't reason for Michael Bay to delay the shoot. Everyone is under contract and the budget is ticking. So, they started with the scenes Bruce wasn't part of. And what might that be? Yep, it was the part of the Russian cosmonaut on space station, played by Peter. After shooting for some time, Willis finally made it to the set, and they tried to shoot one of the first scenes with Peter and Bruce. There was a dialogue, pretty much a verbal exchange of insults, between the two about who was the biggest threat. And every time Peter would deliver his line, Bruce would immediately add his own. Peter would try to finish the dialogue, but Bruce would add another unscripted line. So Peter finally lost his patience and asked Bruce what was going on, to which Willis replied that since he was playing an American, he needed to have the last word in this conversation, not the Russian. They called for Michael Bay, who chose not to take sides. So Peter asked Willis to step aside where no one could hear them and said, "Look, Mr. Willis, we've been shooting here for some time while you were busy elsewhere, and we were doing just fine. You see, we are like a unit now, all glued together. I understand that this is your first day on set, so let me run this by you. In this scene, I'm supposed to give you fuel so you can continue your journey to an asteroid. Now, if you're planning to aggravate me, guess what? You're not going to get squat. So there goes your heroic mission, saving the world, the universe, and everything. So, Mr. Willis, the scene is written to let the Russian have the last word. And if you decide to add your silly lines, we can keep improvising for another hour and continue doing so until I, the Russian cosmonaut, win. So what is it going to be?" Bruce looked around, then back at Peter and said, "Okay, I get it now. You're right. You have to win this argument in the scene, so let's do it the way it was scripted." One of those times, Bruce actually made the right call regardless of his superstar status on stage. To Michael Bay's relief, because he was very nervous observing that chatter from the distance. By the way, Peter loved working with Michael Bay. He especially loved his enthusiasm on set. Michael is hyper and happy just to be there, and it's contagious. Full of insane ideas and wonderful shots, he has a good eye for an action frame, often gets behind the camera himself, driving the director of photography crazy. Oh, and Michael screams a lot, not because he's angry, but because he's overly excited about the action. One more thing about Bay, he loves to improvise and let others do the same. Just like with Ingmar Bergman, this little dispute created a friendship between Peter and Bruce, though over the years they lost contact and drifted apart. Peter always liked and respected the work Bruce did over the years. Once again, Peter's ability to be open and honest about his vision saved the day. Critics hated the movie, but fans loved it. Armageddon was one of the biggest box office success in Peter's career, earning over $550 million on $140 million budget, and it took Oscar for Best Visual Effects. This made it the highest-grossing film of 1998, surpassing other big releases such as Saving Private Ryan and Mulan. Just during the opening weekend, it made $36 million. It was the highest-grossing disaster movie at the time, a title it held until later films like 2004 The Day After Tomorrow. The song I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith, which was featured prominently in the film, became a chart-topping hit and is still associated with Armageddon to this day. As usual, critics were enraged with the movie, call it over-the-top action, unrealistic melodrama. But public didn't care much for the whining critics' corner and stormed the ticket booth to get another roller coaster ride with the astronaut made out of wild oil rig crew. It is surprising that we didn't get to see sequels, prequels, spin-offs, and that's a good news. Hopefully, we don't get the remake either. 1999 TV movie Purgatory. The story revolves around a group of outlaws who find themselves in a strange, desolate town that seems to exist outside of time and reality. The town people are trapped in a limbo-like existence, and the outlaws must figure out how to escape while confronting their past sins and the consequences of their actions. Peter played Gavin Guthrie, one of the outlaws. 1999 8mm psychological thriller with Nicolas Cage in the lead. The film explores the dark, disturbing world of underground snuff films. How can anyone overlook Peter in that movie? He plays the character Dino Velvet, a sinister and disturbing figure who is involved in the underground film industry. Peter does not disappear in leading actor background. In fact, one can argue if Peter is the one who carries the whole movie. Critics were mildly amused but not sold on the film. They liked the acting but plot was uncomfortable to their taste. Public well received the movie, leaving $96 million at the box office, earning double of its budget. 1999 Swedish love drama Love in the Mirror. This movie was somewhat a deviation from what is normally expected of Peter during 90s. Very different, both in character and in genre. If you are planning to watch it, keep in mind that this is rated R for sure. New millennium has arrived, and it was difficult times for a lot of seasoned actors from 80s and 90s. New faces were dominating Hollywood, new names and their legion of fans. This is the rise of new generation of stars, and old school actors had to adapt to survive. Maybe for most it was steady decline or rapid descent to C-grade movies, but not for Peter. He was just warming up. He kicked off the new century with unbelievable performance in The $1 Million Hotel, as Dixie, one of few mysterious figures in a hotel. The film is based on a story written by U2's Bono, who also contributed to the film's soundtrack. There is a scene where Peter's character sings. You don't have to watch the movie, but this part is just breathtaking.
I'm crying. I'm crying.
The performance of one of the Beatles song adaptation is outstanding. Too bad I cannot place 2 minutes of it in the video. Do yourself a favor, find and listen to it, if you ever wonder what Peter sounds like as a singer. Bud Cort got choked up during the scene and had to fight back tears because it's such a powerful moment, as if Peter was the fifth Beatle. But critics and public rolled the movie in tar and feathers. It lost a ton of money, $3.3 million earning against $22 million budget.
Because I am the walrus.
Mystery movie Bruiser has an interesting plot. A man awakens to find his face replaced by a blank white mask. Peter plays the role of Miles Style, a pleasure-seeking tyrannical boss. Miles is the head of Lifestyle magazine and embodies greed, arrogance, and excess. His abusive behavior towards Henry serves as the catalyst for Henry's psychological breakdown and transformation. It is an entertaining movie if played at the right time at the right place. Film crashed and burned at the box office, earning just $15,000 over its $5 million budget. Critics left the theater, but the movie has developed a cult following among fans of George Romero's work and those interested in dark, offbeat thrillers. French thriller Circus. Peter plays the role of Julius, a manipulative and cunning character involved in a complex con. Julius hires a man called Leo to kill his wife, only to later reveal that the woman was a hired actress. He uses this setup to blackmail Leo with incriminating evidence of the murder, demanding a large sum of money in return. Julius is a calculating figure whose plans ultimately spiral into chaos as betrayals. While critics were in love with the performance, public couldn't find the time nor desire to purchase tickets. Another flop at the box office, earning $15,000 with the budget of $8 million. Period drama musical Dancer in the Dark. Peter plays Jeff, a socially awkward co-worker and friend of the main character, Selma, played by Bjork. Jeff's quiet, unassuming nature contrasts with the intense emotional turmoil faced by Selma throughout the film. Jeff is deeply in love with Selma and often tries to help and protect her even when she resists his advances. Bjork fans made the box office. Movie was a big hit, earning $40 million on $13 million budget. Soundtracks to this movie were written by Björk, and it took a whole year to convince her to play the lead role. In the feel-good romance genre movie called Chocolat, Peter plays Serge Muscat, the abusive husband. Serge represents the oppressive forces that clash with the liberating owner of chocolate shop. Over time, Serge's character arc involves moments of confrontation and change, which are essential to the film's emotional development and message of transformation. However, public did not get the message. The movie was a big loss for the studio, making only $150,000 with the $25 million budget. Happy Campers. Coming-of-age comedy gained huge popularity, and what is the best way to adapt? Correct, join the wave. Was it Peter's best? Not really. How could it be in such a movie, but he sure looked like having a lot of fun making it. Critics and public took a note of this independent film, but it wasn't enough to keep them around. Movie budget was $5 million and it managed to scrap $100,000. No surprise there, as it was not widely promoted or distributed.
What kind of a sick ritual is that?
Drama 13 Moons. Even Santa Claus, played by Peter, could not survive the movie. Another tragic accident. Movie made just a little over $100,000 on its $2 million budget. Critics were pleased with the film, but audience did not notice the limited release. Bad Company, an action comedy film directed by Joel Schumacher, starring Chris Rock. Peter plays Edric Bass and is involved in criminal side of the plot of the espionage operations. Character made his exit in typical Peter's character fashion with a loud boom. Critics and audience were chasing director with pitchforks. Nobody liked the movie upon its initial release. It made $60 million on its $70 million budget. The Beatle Fan. Short 24 minutes drama about Albert, a psychotic prisoner who is devoted fan of John Lennon and the Beatles. Peter plays the main character Albert. War drama Wind Talkers, the story of tough marine assigned to protect one of the Navajo code talkers. Peter plays a captain, a supporting character who is part of the military unit. Essentially, he sent main characters on a mission to their demise. Movie angered most of critics and public wasn't sure what to make of it, leaving $77 million of its hard-earned cash, but it did not help the catastrophe of $115 million budget. Peter's Dr. Solomon in cyberpunk thriller Minority Report. It is a great movie. Spielberg at his best, and the scene with the Dr. Solomon is Peter Stormare show. Tom Cruise temporarily falls into supporting role. The entire time you don't know if the doctor was going to help Cruise or enact revenge. Dr. Solomon assistant is awesome. Singing Sweden song together is a nice touch. Movie was both critic and public success. Tom Cruise was on the rise and it showed in the box office earnings of $358 million on its $100 million budget. Spawn, dark comedy drama about the chaotic world of drug addiction. It is an interesting trash that somehow managed to find $2 million to make. Barely made $700,000 at the box office. If you're interested in seeing John Leguizamo running around wearing nothing but a sock, this is the movie to watch. 2002 was the beginning of Peter's voice recognition, and he will be asked to voice many video and cartoon characters in the future. Icewind Dale 2 video game, Isaiah voice. The Tuxedo, a spy action comedy film starring Jackie Chan and Jennifer Love Hewitt. Even though the movie has a low score on IMDb, I have always enjoyed it, and Dr. Sims? Isn't he the best portrayal of evil doctor? He isn't bloodthirsty villain, he's very much science-oriented and couldn't help but being fascinated by the result of his invention. While traditionally Jackie Chan's stunts and physical comedy were praised, critics were booing the film. But young audience discovered Jackie Chan and were over the moon with his performance. Movie made over $100 million on $60 million budget. This isn't material for a sequel. An independent comedy drama, The Movie Hero. Peter plays suspicious character, mystery figure who acts as the gatekeeper between Blake's movie reality and the audience. If nothing else, the ending credits have Peter performing a song.
I've been a bad, bad boy, but I promise myself to enjoy the rest of my life.
Also, the whole movie was written in 1 week. It had a budget of approximately $475. The movie did not have a traditional theatrical release. Instead, it gained attention through film festivals, where it won the Audience Award at the Austin Film Festival. The film was later released on DVD and aired on Showtime cable channel in 2006. 2003 was the year when Peter joined other movie stars in TV sitcom appearances. Television was slowly but surely taking over movie audience, and it couldn't be ignored. Stealing actors from featured film was one of the ways to gain momentum and popularity in TV genre. You will see more and more of Peter in various TV series and shows. Watching Ellie, sitcom comedy, Peter played Ingmar in 11 episodes, which is unusual longevity. He much preferred a single episode or two at most. Hitler, The Rise of Evil, a profile of life of Adolf with unique slant as his rise through the ranks of National Socialist German Workers' Party prior to World War II. Summer blockbuster buddy cop comedy action Bad Boys 2, directed by Michael Bay and starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. When Peter steps into the frame, we all know the movie is about to get good. He played character named Alexei, a Russian gangster who becomes involved in the drug trade storyline. Cannot believe they decided to waste him in the end. Could have been an excellent recurring character. Movie was criticized for its excessive violence and over-the-top action, exactly what audience loved it for. It made $273 million on $130 million budget. While not huge success, it definitely warranted another sequel. Birth, a psychological thriller starring Nicole Kidman. Peter is at his best drama acting. He plays the character Clifford, one of the family members present when the young boy, Sean, claims to be the reincarnation of Anna's deceased husband. Movie received polarized critical reception. While Nicole Kidman's performance was widely praised, the film's controversial subject matter was unsettled for many as provocative and inappropriate. Over time, however, the film has developed a reputation as bold, art-house psychological thriller, and it's now viewed more favorably. Movie made $24 million on its $20 million budget. Joey, quick stop to play Victor. He plays hair salon boss, and this is spin-off of Friends that follows Joey Tribbiani as he navigates his career and personal life in Los Angeles. One episode was enough for Peter. The Bard's Tale video game, voice as himself. Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, video game Matthias Nilsson voice. We made it to yet another fan favorite, 2005 supernatural horror mystery thriller Constantine. Peter got the role thanks to Jack Nicholson, who turned it down, as the check wasn't big enough. Peter was ready to play it for a bucket of fries and a cup of soda. Initially, his character was meant to wear an outlandish leather suit with a hair, bare chest sticking out, covered in ludicrous tattoos, rocking greasy hair, and cheap bondage jewelry. Typical bad boy image pretending to be tough. Peter dismissed that nonsense and fought hard to change the outfit. He insisted on clean, almost theatrical linen suit, and wanted it white to elevate the presence even higher. He also suggested shaving his eyebrows, again his idea. The reason was simple, he wanted to be heard. If he dressed like a second-tier biker, nobody would listen to anything his character had to say, and that was a big no-no for Peter. It took a while to convince the director, but in the end, he won, and so did the audience. He remains the #1 Lucifer of all times, the undisputed champion in portraying the Dark Prince. Though Peter himself isn't sure whether to be proud or ashamed of it, as he did such a good job portraying the Lord of Darkness, which conflicted with his religious beliefs. While critics were fighting each other with pencils, arguing over the movie appeal, public loved the film and over the time developed rather strong fan base. With its $100 million budget and $230 million box office, it looked pretty good for yet another story. For years, Peter wanted to make a sequel of Constantine. Keanu and him were in constant communication about the movie. The only requirement that they had was to keep the same director, writers, and general formula. Do not bring boom, crash, bang to it. Don't turn it into yet another flashy, full of CGI action movie. It isn't about that. Keep it just like the first movie, simple, contained, and based on characters, not on special effects. While Peter was ready to jump in, Keanu would play catch and release for so long that it was hard to say whether he was in or was he out. Took forever to finally get on the same page, and it isn't a good thing for any sequel to be made 20 years after the original. It is hard to keep momentum after this many years. Oh well, I guess we will know soon enough if it is everything Peter and Keanu wanted. At least they got the same director, Francis Lawrence, and one of the original writer, Jamie Delano. The movie is in production and scheduled for the release in 2025 or 2026. How time flies by, it's already end of 2024. 2001 Maniacs. The movie is loose remake of the 1964 film 2000 Maniacs and centers around a group of college students who encountered a rural town filled with cannibalistic residents. Those town folks have a twisted tradition of luring outsiders and killing them in the gruesome ways, all while maintaining hospitable facade. The film is a relatively low-budget mix of dark humor, gory violence, and campy performances. Peter plays Professor Ackerman. The road to demise begins with his character. Audience was split in its opinion. For some, it was over-the-top fun horror, and for others, it was way too much gore. Critics decided to do not touch this film with even 10 feet pole. The movie struggled to cover its $3 million budget, making just a little over $370,000, and with home video sales it managed to earn a total of $1.3 million, still far cry to make it even. The Brothers Grimm, a dark fantasy adventure that imagines the legendary fairy tale collectors, the Grimms. Okay, this is one of my personal favorite Peter's character. First time I've seen his Capaldi, I couldn't stop repeating the phrase Generale.
Generale, I wish to resign my...
Critics and audience could bite my shiny metal butt. I still love the movie. With the budget of $88 million, it made $105 million worldwide, just enough to pay electrical bill. Next was Quake 4 video game Strauss voice, The Batman vs. Dracula. This animated film is part of the Batman animated series and blends the world of Gotham with the supernatural. Peter Stormare voices the Dracula.
I am evil incarnate.
It was straight to DVD release and later aired on Cartoon Network. Nacho Libre, comedy about a Mexican monk who secretly becomes a luchador wrestler to raise money for the orphans in his care. Small role, Peter in few minutes on screen as an emperor. Jack Black made a good box office, earning $99 million on $35 million budget. Critics still scratching their heads on how did it do so well, while film found a solid following among audience who appreciated its oddball humor. Mystery thriller unknown. The film centers around a man who wakes up with no memory of his identity and is caught in the complex situation where he must uncover the truth about his circumstances and the people around him. Peter plays Snakeskin Boots, his usual criminal leader type. Solid performance but not much to add to his existing portfolio. With $20 million budget and $6.8 million earnings, studio bosses threw the movie straight into the trash can. Comedy One Night with You. This is hard to describe, looks beyond strange. I'm sure somebody will find this movie a gem. Peter plays a character called Steinmetz. It is time for Prison Break, TV series with Peter taking part between 2005-2006 with a single uncredited episode in 2007. How did Peter got involved with Prison Break? He had a meeting with Paul Shorin, creator of Prison Break, and John Papsadera, casting agent. Peter shared with them his view of the character, and the next day they called and said they want Peter for the part. A major influence for fictional John Abruzzi was Camillus of Abruzzi, the founder of the Red Cross. He was an Italian, heavy drinker, but later in life he changed that destructive course. Director decided to call him John instead of Camillus, after Saint John of God. His legend was that he came to the US as a young boy, his father was an Italian and his mother was Syrian. That legend was based on Peter's best friend from many years ago, Nicky from Brooklyn. Peter used his life story as an inspiration to create John. To be clear, Nicky was never involved in crimes like John. He simply used his day-to-day behavior as general pattern for his character. When Peter was preparing for the role, he had a chance to spend time within prison and explore abandoned cells with some remaining old photos and scribing on the walls. He physically experienced all the pain, regret, and suffering emitting from those rooms. Peter recalled one thought going through his mind: no matter what, never end up in prison. Young people should be taken there to understand what consequences look like. The whole experience reminded Peter of World War II concentration camp. Halfway through the first season, Peter had plans to leave the series to pursue other opportunities outside of the television world. The character was originally supposed to be killed off, but in the end was slashed and returned to the series, listed as a guest star. Paul Shorin wanted to create a cliffhanger and Peter agreed. The break allowed him to focus on production of independent movie and some commercials. Second season was the last for John, as Peter rarely could bear the idea to hang out with the same project for too long. He simply couldn't wait to try another project elsewhere. But the end of John had to be written in a good old Peter's movie fashion tradition. His character had to go out in blaze and glory. Drama Hoppet, also known as Leaps and Bounds. Sweden movie about a boy who comes to Sweden by mistake. In order to blend in with the family that hides him, he must pretend that he is 9 years old. Alone in a new country and no understanding of the language, but with the help of spaced-out hot dog vendor played by Peter, he becomes the coolest guy in school and world champion. Perhaps he can find and reunite with his real family once again. This is a classic example of what Peter loves to do outside of the big-budget movies and series. Small, heartwarming production. Movie made only $28,000 in the box office. Hard to sell movie tickets in Europe. When Peter plays any kind of doctors, in this case it was Dr. Roth, regardless of the nature of the role, if I to see Peter in a hospital going over my bed, it will be an instant recovery from the sheer terror. He looks like a reaper making his rounds in a hospital and is always right on schedule. Mystery thriller Premonition with Sandra Bullock in the lead. Movie budget was $20 million and it managed to make $47 million worldwide. Last minute save for Bullock's career. Short thriller They Never Found Her. Another example of how wide Peter's acting gamut is. Movie is just 23 minutes long and yet it keeps you glued to the screen because of the outstanding performance of both Peter and Elizabeth Moss. It's dark, suspenseful and creepy. What is not to like? No idea why IMDb rating is this low, only 5.6. I liked it. Another invite to a popular TV series, CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. Typical character for Peter, named George Blinky Babinkian. Who comes up with those names? Random dice roll on an alphabet board? I suppose this is exactly what showrunners were looking for, having Peter as the special guest on the show. Norwegian comedy romance movie Gone with the Woman. A woman moves into young man's home and starts to run his life. A process that makes him fall hopelessly in love with her. Peter plays a character named Glenn, who is part of a group of men who frequent in sauna. He provides advice to the protagonist on his complicated relationship with the woman. The movie was Norway's official submission to the Best Foreign Language Film category of the 80th Annual Academy Awards in 2008. Horror thriller Anamorph is a psychological thriller based on the concept of anamorphosis, a painting technique that manipulates the laws of perspective to create two competing images on a single canvas. I am a sucker for this kind of films. While the movie got slaughtered by fans and critics and recovered only $675,000 from its original budget, I will be the first to watch movies just like that in the future. Thriller Ika. A divorced policeman loses custody over his young son, only to kidnap his boy and retreat to a remote cottage, where his plan soon turns into a nightmare. Danish movie grossing $106,000 worldwide. Peter plays Simon's father. Norwegian family drama Switch. The best part of the movie is Peter Stormare as an ex-surfer who left riding waves and becomes a snowboarder. Movie failed to recoup its $2.7 million budget by earning only $2.6 million at the box office. Another single appearance in a TV series, this time it's Monk. Peter is playing Petya Lovak character, eccentric art lover who couldn't resist the charms of Monk painting. As always, big entrance with huge charisma, taking the stage and stealing the episode. You can tell the whole cast was enjoying Peter's performance.
Oh, look at that.
Witness Protection is a goofy comedy with very low rating of just a little over 3 out of 10. It's about small-town Sheriff Larry, who gets involved in a federal witness protection case. The plot revolves around Larry carelessly protecting a woman who is part of witness protection program, leading to comedic situations as they try to stay one step ahead of the criminals after her. Peter plays Arthur Grimsley, charming criminal mastermind. Movie was not a big hit, collecting $4 million against its $7.5 million budget. Critics and audience threw Rotten Tomatoes at the theater screen, home TVs, and movie posters. Larry the Cable Guy did not deliver that year. Wolf. Swedish drama. Peter plays a character called Clemens. Story follows Mats, a man who is dealing with difficult situation involving his troubled family and personal crisis. The film explores themes of identity, isolation, and tension between human and animalistic instinct. $3 million budget could not be saved by $1.4 million box office earnings. Boot Camp was yet another psychological drama box office disaster. With a budget of $14 million, its donation tin can collected only $150,000. Peter played the role of Colonel Normal Hale, one of the camp's leaders who oversees the harsh training of youth. Neither critics nor audience wanted to contribute anything to its success. In Transformers Animated, Peter did 3 episodes voicing Prometheus Black.
Because you're a fraud.
In Sanitarium, horror film directed by Jeffrey Landau, Peter plays Dr. Giannetti, who is using his patients like lab rats, forcing them to take a drug that turns them into flesh-eating psychopath. As it was said earlier, Peter makes one scary doctor on screen. Critics themselves turned into flesh-eating psychopath and ate the movie alive, while audience struggled to stay seated. Box office and home video release combined made a little dent to its glaring black hole called budget recovery. Studio had to kiss goodbye its $3 million investment. Next was video game Mercenaries 2: World in Flames, voice of Matthias Nilsson. Command & Conquer, Red Alert 3, another video game, voice of Dr. Grigor Zelensky. Orgies and the Meaning of Life. This film is creative, wacky, and quite witty. Not for everyone, but Peter had much fun with it playing Ivan Michigan. By now it is obvious that Peter sort of abandoned the idea of pursuing quality and went after quantity. He simply loves to be part of the movie-making process. Gnomes and Trolls, The Secret Chamber, Swedish animated fantasy film, Peter is the voice of Prickles. Positive reviews did not save the movie. It burned its $5 million budget with only $307,000 to show for. The Killing Room. Peter plays another doctor in this psychological thriller. This time it's Dr. Phillips, who runs a psychological research study where subjects are forced into a brutal, classified government program. Movie did not live up to critics' expectations, while audience was intrigued by its dark, tense atmosphere. With the budget of $3 million, it left the building with just $467,000 in cash. Another thriller, Horseman. The story revolves around a detective who is investigating a series of brutal murders that seems to be connected to the Four Horsemen of Apocalypse. As Adrian delves deeper into the case, he uncovers dark secret about his own past and must confront his own demons. Peter plays David Spitz's character. Movie disappointed critics, failed its fans and drowned in debt. It made $2.4 million against its $20 million budget. Home video helped to recover another $7.1 million. Studio is still on a lookout for the missing change. Tim and Eric Awesome Show, great job. In an episode called Road Trip, Peter plays a Cinco Boy seller, synthetic doll that replaces tragically deceased family members. It is a dark comedy show, as you can tell from the character description, and Peter fits right in. Wanted, Weapons of Fate, video game, Voice of the Immortal. Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus is a fantasy film directed by Terry Gilliam, known for his visually imaginative and surreal filmmaking style. Peter has a very small role as Mr. President. This was the very last work of Heath Ledger, who passed away before completing the shoot. After Ledger's passing, the film was restructured with Depp, Law, and Farrell stepping in to play different versions of Tony within the alternate realities depicted in The Magical Mirror. The movie had a budget of $30 million but performed modestly at the box office, grossing $61.2 million worldwide. Just enough to call it almost even in the movie business. With marketing expenses, it was still a loss for the studio. Critics and audience liked the movie, and it keeps gaining more recognition with every year passing. Entourage, high-end classic TV series from HBO when the network knew how to make great TV. Peter was in 2 episodes playing Aaron Coher, over-the-top security consultant who cuts no corners and places client safety above everything except for his steep $100,000 retainer. When Peter enters the room, everyone else can relax. Nobody is watching your acting, all eyes on Peter's performance. Thriller Otis E, aka Convict, a drama about a tough world where a mob member gets locked up in jail for something he did not do. He plans for his revenge while inside the prison with his inmates. Peter plays Reverend Roy. This is a low-budget $1 million film. It was limited to release and movie did not get many screens to play on. Musical drama Ivory. The story centers on a young man's struggle between success versus fulfillment. He must train with the piano teacher to win a competition. Peter plays David Strauss. Also, this movie is one of the early work of Travis Fimmel, soon to be known as Ragnar Lothbrok. Corridor, Swedish mystery thriller movie. Peter plays Mickey, scary, jealous boyfriend. Worldwide box office was just a little over $7,000. Tough crowd in Europe. Sabaton, Uprising, music video. Peter played a Nazi officer, though uncredited for the appearance. Top-notch performance. He's scary believable. Moomins and the Comet Chase. Not enough kids brought their parents to the theater to see this animated story. With the budget of $10 million, it made only $620,000. Peter was the voice of Snufkin in English version. Personally, graphic was a bit lackluster for the budget. Another fine example of an excellent TV show, this time it is Weeds. Peter was involved in 2 episodes as chef. Heist comedy drama Henry's Crime, Keanu Reeves in the lead. Peter played Derek Milodrakovic. With budget of $12 million, the box office earnings were nowhere near expectations considering it had Matrix star in it. $2 million is all it got. Crime drama Small Town Murder Sons, Canadian film. Rare movie with Peter in the lead, who after long break finally decided to play something deep, meaningful and dramatic. Almost as if he finally came across a script worth his time. Peter Stormare plays Walter, a sheriff's deputy in small-town community in Ontario. The film revolves around a murder case that forces Walter to confront his troubled past and present. While the investigation unfolds, the community tensions rise, and Walter's own violent history and recent religious renewal came to the forefront. Stormare's portrayal of Walter stands in contrast of his usual role as a villain. Movie only made $31,000 worldwide, and it's a shame. Music drama Jenny Jones. Peter Stormare plays Sloan, the manager of struggling rock band. The story revolves around Ethan's unexpected encounter with his daughter, Jenny, and how their relationship evolves as Ethan tries to come to terms with fatherhood while dealing with his professional and personal troubles. Sloan helps keep the band together within the chaos surrounding Ethan's life. With the budget of $3 million, the movie managed to recover $6,000 on its worldwide earnings. Music drama did not sell well in 2010. Cop action Hawaii 5-0. TV series appearance in 1 episode as Drago Zankovic, typical cast for Peter by showrunners, gangster with a plan that goes out and smokes. Horror film Undocumented. Lost footage found type of movie was somewhat popular for a little while. That handheld shaky camera work quickly got old. Almost entire movie Peter wears fishnet over his face, so you can only hear his voice. This is a low-budget horror film about abuse and suffer by undocumented immigrants forced into Guantanamo Bay-like facility. Not sure what movie makers spent $1.4 million budget on, since the whole film looked like a student project. Adventure Time, animated TV series. Peter made his usual single-episode voiceover as an old man called Sir Slicer.
Oh, you foolish boy.
Mystery supernatural horror Dylan Dog, Dead of Night. The film follows a paranormal investigator who uncovers a plot involving vampires, werewolves, and other dark forces. Peter plays Gabriel the Vampire. The $20 million budget is hard to detect. Film barely made $6 million in the box office. Audience didn't need critics to tell them how bad it was. Year of 2011 started with the Melody Festival. This was something new as Peter appeared in Swedish music competition that served as the country selection process for the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest 2011. With his celebrity status stretching across the globe, it was the right call to include Peter as the promotional fuel for the show. The winner, Erik Saade, with the song Popular, went on to represent Sweden in Eurovision that year, ultimately finishing at the 3rd place in the European competition. Superhero animated action TV series Ben 10, Ultimate Alien, single episode. Peter is voice of King Victor.
This is the one.
Spiritual drama The Way Shower. Peter plays Prince of Doubt. Great acting, directing, and production quality led to all-time lowest IMDb score of any Peter's involvement, a whopping 2.6 out of 10. $2.8 million budget well spent. I suspect it has something to do with the idea that the script is based on the autobiography of a cult leader. Spy action thriller Covert Affairs. 1 episode in this TV show as Max Kupola, Belarusia operative dealing with the American CIA spy crossing border from Poland. Norwegian comedy Help, We Are in the Film Business. Glenn has been dumped by his girlfriend. He's lonely and terribly difficult to deal with. To cheer him up, his buddies get a brilliant idea. How about organize a fake audition for a non-existent feature film? Peter plays himself as Peter Stormare. Marianne, Swedish horror mystery film about a man who begins to fall apart mentally, having dreadful nightmares after the death of his beloved wife. Peter Stormare plays a character called Sven, who is a therapist. Sven is involved in helping the protagonist Kristen deal with the nightmares and mental struggles following the death of his wife. The film focuses on themes of guilt, family conflict, and supernatural terror rooted in Swedish folklore, with the titular Marianne being a folkloric creature believed to be responsible for the sleep paralysis experiences. It had a budget of $150,000, so not much to expect other than acting. False Trail, Swedish mystery crime thriller. A Stockholm cop returns again to his hometown in the northern wilderness to investigate a murder. Peter plays Torsten, a central character in the film's storyline, which revolves around a brutal crime that forces police officer Eric to return to his hometown. The tension between Eric and Torsten forms a major part of the film's narrative, as both characters embody contrasting elements of justice and moral ambiguity. Movie made close to $8 million on $10 million budget. Does cinematography in Sweden exist exclusively on government grants and public donations? Body comedy Wilfred, traditionally a single episode in this TV series as Trash Face. Inseparable, a troubled young man faces pressure at work and problems at home. Chuck rescues Lee from the brink of despair and becomes an unlikely mentor. But Chuck may have alternate motives for the relationship. This was the first fully Chinese-funded film to have a Hollywood star in the lead. Peter plays Richard. The film premiered at the Busan Film Festival in October 2011, with a limited release in the US in June 2012 and in China in May 2012. Movie made $265,000 worldwide. Doubt it covered Kevin Spacey's fee as a lead role character. A Standard Story, experimental 7-minute short film about a girl living in a hotel, wake to find herself in the middle of the enchanted forest. In this alternate universe, she goes on a remarkable journey of discovery. Peter plays Bully, in a good way. He's like a bullman. Heist crime thriller TV series Leverage. Peter plays a role of Gunther Hansen, a documentary filmmaker with vivid imagination. Water leaking out, spiraling down the drain, like a dreams. Peter is a mini-movie inside a TV show. Crime TV series NCIS Los Angeles. Another single episode as Interpol agent Martin Kolstrom. Just when you thought Peter is playing on the good side as an international agent, turns out nothing ever changes. Showrunners couldn't find anything else but a crook part for Peter. Comedy drama Small Apartments. Peter plays a rather convincing landlord, Mr. Olivieri, with nasty ideas of how to collect overdue rent. One day it doesn't go as planned, hard to feel sorry for the character. The budget was $2 million and it did not recover much of it, even though critics liked the movie because it had a limited release. It did, however, gain more attention through DVD, home video lease, and VOD, video on demand. Action thriller Get the Gringo. When Mel Gibson needs a good villain, Peter is an excellent choice to play Frank. Nobody would have a single doubt that the character will be exactly as audience needs. But it was still not enough to make a buck. With $20 million budget, it made just $9 million at the box office. With time, it aged well and still gains popularity with the newer audience. Sci-fi action Lockout. A wrongly convicted man is offered his freedom if he can rescue the president's daughter from the outer space prison. Fancy to see Guy Pearce all jacked up. Peter plays Scott Langrel, head of the security service with tough decisions to make. Surprisingly not a villain role considering genre. Visuals still hold up even today. It is full of cheesy humor that keeps the mood just light enough not to take the whole film seriously. Joey Gilgun was really good in it. film made $32 million on $20 million budget. No franchise for this one. Medical drama Body of Proof. One episode as Wilson Polly, a killer who is trying to manipulate authorities to get the jail-free card for revenge. Jewtopia, a romantic comedy centered on a young man who pretends to be Jewish in order to win the affection of his love interest. Peter plays Buck O'Connell, ultra-patriotic father who wants to toughen up his son by denying him joy of friendship with nerd kids. With $5 million budget, it had a limited release and was decimated by critics. Movie went home with just $88,000 in its pocket. The Secret World video game voice of Dr. Anton Aldini. Big Top Scooby-Doo animated film voice of Wulfric von Ridensward. Tai Chi Hero 2 Chinese-made action-adventure fantasy. Peter plays Duke Fleming character. With the budget of $8.5 million, the movie found just few people willing to spend money on tickets. It made a total of $668,000 worldwide. The Last Stand. When Peter heard about Arnold Schwarzenegger making another movie, like many others, he asked to come aboard. The chance to work with Arnold and shake his hand excited Peter. Also, it was considered a dare comeback for Arnold after serving as governor of California, and Peter wanted to be part of it. Give all the support he can. He has an enormous respect for Arnold as an actor and someone who, just like Peter, came to America from out of nowhere and changed the world. During filming, Arnold was seen purchasing clothes at Walmart. They were for the freezing film crew as it was very cold during the nighttime shoot in the desert. Peter played Thomas Burrell, one of the main antagonists and an enforcer working for the drug lord Gabriel Cortez. As a key villain, Burrell leads a group of mercenaries tasked with clearing the way for the Cortez escape. The film had production budget of $45 million. However, it underperformed at the box office, earning only $48.3 million worldwide. Critics were trying to hold their tongues in case he'll be back, but audience in general loved the performance, just not enough to call it successful comeback. Keep at it, Arnie. Peter never ever watches films in full where he plays any role. He couldn't bear his own image on screen. It isn't uncommon in Hollywood among many other actors. Too bad, you're in a lot of great movies, Peter. Have to watch at least some of them. There was one exception though. When Last Stand came out, Arnold insisted that the entire cast would sit and watch the movie. Can't say no to former governor. Fantasy action Hansel and Gretel. Witch Hunters as Sheriff Berenger. Peter's character serves as the corrupt and antagonist lawman who opposes Hansel and Gretel. Sheriff is known for his brash and brutal demeanor, often abusing his position of power to assert control over the town folks. Critics were furious with the movie and wanted it to die in vain. However, public disagreed and trashed local theaters with popcorn and soda cans. Movie was great commercial success. With $50 million budget, it earned $226 million at the box office. Siberian Education. The film was made in Italy and is a crime drama set in a community of so-called honest criminals, with a strict moral code that clashes with the Soviet authorities. Peter plays Ink, the master of tattoo. With the budget of $20 million, it made close to $6 million, which was a total loss for the production studio. John Malkovich just couldn't fill the seats. Bad Mila. Horror comedy about a guy who learns that his unusual stomach pains are being caused by a demon living in his intestines. Peter plays Highsmith, the one who knows how to bond with the demon called Mila. Movie barely made $19,000 worldwide. Crime comedy Pain and Gain. Peter plays Dr. Bjornsson, sketchy-looking doctor with the promise of a miracle for a man with the ED. Critics were hilarious. They did not like the fact that movie trivialized the seriousness of the crimes it described. Movie had $26 million budget and made $86 million at the box office, back when The Rock was still cheap to get. Phineas and Ferb, Mission Marvel, one episode in cartoon for kids voicing Whiplash.
Maybe he is a misunderstood genius.
Sci-fi drama The Zero Theorem, another role of a doctor. What is it with Peter and doctors? His character is one of the various doctors in the film, contributing to the surreal, dystopian world, adding to the sense of fragmented, often bureaucratic society in which people are disconnected from meaning and purpose. $8.5 million budget and only $2.7 million return. The film philosophy just couldn't get through. Drama thriller Autumn Blood. Peter plays the mayor. The role is that of a morally ambiguous, tough, and somewhat sinister figure. The mayor is representative of authority and control in this suspenseful thriller. Movie made about 4,000 worldwide, friends and family box office. Action thriller Heatstroke. This 4.8 rating film is another time-passing role for Peter Stormare, who plays a character named Malik. The film is a survival thriller where Malik is one of the antagonists. Set in the desert, the story focuses on a family that is stranded after their vehicle breaks down. Critics and audience gave the movie a thumb down. Not to be. Sperm Boy, 11 minutes long. Well, short movie where Peter is crazy Scandinavian captain navigating enormous cruise ship full of corruption and criminals. Sometimes filmmakers just want to have fun. Kicking off 2014 with one episode in comedy TV series Rake as Jack Tarrant, a confused serial killer who never killed anyone. Instead, took confession to gain reputation to survive in prison. Crime comedy Psych, another single episode as Cyrus Polk, a criminal who is trying to prove his innocence while keeping EM hostage. Rage. Peter Stormare plays Francis O'Connell, an old mob boss contact. His character is depicted as the crippled Irish mafia boss, involved in the larger plot centered around Paul, Nicolas Cage character, an ex-criminal seeking revenge after his daughter's murder. $15 million budget with $2.5 million earnings, it took a while before producers stopped banking on Nicolas Cage. Critics loved to hate Cage. The Elder Scrolls Online video game, voice of Jeroen the Skullkin. Comedy 22 Jump Street. Peter plays the Ghost, a drug kingpin and one of the film's main antagonists. The Ghost is a dangerous criminal who becomes a key target for undercover cops. Finally, a huge success after so many flops in a row. $50 million budget and $331 million earnings at the box office. A highly profitable sequel to 21 Jump Street. Critics loved it and audience voted with its money. Drama Mall. Peter plays Barry, a money-hungry tuxedo salesman. Barry is one of the individuals whose life is affected by the chaotic events that unfold when a man launches a violent rampage inside a shopping mall. The film's promotional effort as a sneak peek at the art exhibition helped drive awareness. It has a limited release and later became available on video on demand. Critics liked the visual while audience kind of ignored its release. Poseidon Code, Chinese action movie. Scientists and Chinese maritime police race to save sea turtles endangered by criminal gangs and ecological disaster. Destiny video game, voice of Arak Jalal. Bang Bang Baby. It has been a while since Peter took a serious dramatic role, and George Holliday was a good break from a stream of typecasting. This is low $1 million budget Canadian musical mystery set in the 1960s. A small-town teenager believes that her dreams of becoming a famous singer will come true when her rock star idol gets stranded in her town. But a leak in a nearby chemical plant that is believed to cause mass mutation may turn her dream into a nightmare. The 11th Hour. Peter plays the Russian. Here we go, back to what most directors see in Peter. And how much money did the movie make? Worldwide collection was exactly $510. Alright, from depressing movie to fun computer animation. Penguins of the Madagascar. Peter is the voice of Corporal.
Penguins.
An unusual longevity in TV series. 6 episodes in The Blacklist as Milos Berlin Kirchhoff. Canadian film clown. Low-budget horror thriller playing character called Carlson. For its $1.5 million budget, it made $4.4 million. Good return on investment. We are in the year of 2015. Horror thriller Dark Summer. A 17-year-old is on house arrest and a horrifying incident occurs, leaving an ominous presence in the house. Peter has a small role of Mr. Stokes, who serves as the probation officer overseeing the main character. Computer animated adventure Strange Magic. Voice of Tang.
I better tell him. Good idea.
The movie barely made its money back. $12.5 million budget and $13.6 million box office. German drama Everything Will Be Fine. Another small role for Peter as publisher. Couple of minutes on screen time. It had a limited release and didn't make significant earnings, which is typical for Wagner's art house film. With $12 million budget, movie tanked by making $555,000 at box office. 2 episodes in a TV series Arrow. In Werner Seidel Vertigo. Video game Lego Jurassic World. Voice of Dieter Stark. Video game Until Dawn. Voice of Dr. Hill. And couple of TV series. 3 episodes in cop drama Graceland as Martin Sarkisian, and 5 episodes in history war drama Manhattan as Lazar. Peter started 2016 with the comedy TV series Those Who Can't as Superintendent Conrad Carson, a terror of the local teacher staff with questionable qualities. Horror thriller Rapture. The story follows Renee Morgan, who is abducted and subject to a series of experiments aimed at a triggering genetic transformation through extreme fear. Peter plays Terrence, the main antagonist, leading the secretive organization responsible of those tests with the ultimate goal to evolve humanity by rupturing a specific genetic code, allowing humans to transform into a new, superior life form. Movie terrorized its audience for $31,000 at the box office. King of Dancehall. Peter played Pierce Davidson, a supporting character in this musical drama film. Critics found the film's story weak and the acting underwhelming. With its limited release, not much to expect from the box office. And 2 episodes in Swedish-French crime TV series Midnight Sun as Rutger Berlin. Year of 2017. Single episode in Justice League action animation, voice of Mr. Freeze.
Was that a joke, Batman?
John Wick Chapter 2 as Abram Tarasov, a character tied to the Russian criminal underworld and the brother of Viggo Tarasov from the first John Wick film. The decision to bring Stormare into the cast was influenced by his established reputation for portraying memorable villains and eccentric characters. His casting was announced alongside other notable actors. By the way, when John Wick suggests peace in vodka scene, Peter's response is an absolute nonsense, some made-up combination of words. His line was «Разве может такой человек, как ты, жить в мире?» And here is what he said. Такой трайер очень бить нет в пределах. At least Keanu pronounces a couple of words in actual language. Come on, Peter, you can learn one line in language you portrayed characters in so many movies. 1 episode in animated TV series Jeff and Some Aliens as the retirement specialist. 9 episodes in Finnish crime drama mystery Black Widows as Folke Lundgren. 2017 action movie Kill 'Em All with Jean-Claude Van Damme in the lead, playing Agent Mark Holman. Video game The Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind, voice of Jeroen the Scald King. 7 episodes in animated series Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, voice of Lord Drag. 2 episodes in animated series Pen-Zero, part-time hero, voice of Rufus. Animated movie The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature, voice of Gunther. South Korean crime action thriller VIP as Paul. Movie made close to $10 million worldwide. Video game Destiny 2, voice of Arak Jalal. 6 episodes in TV series Longmire as Chance Gilbert. Year of 2018. Here is TV series Peter is actually proud of. It is called Swedish Dicks. He was a main star and went for 20 episodes between 2016 and 2018. It is about a couple of unlicensed Swedish private investigators trying to make a living in Los Angeles. The name Ingmar was a direct line to his longtime friend and mentor, Ingmar Bergman. This is the show that Peter wanted to do for some time, his own thing. He also took upon himself to pick up a young promising Swedish actor as his co-star. It was meant to be a 1-hour drama per episode at first, but talking to his collaborator, it was decided to switch to half-hour comedy format. It is easier to write and much easier to sell. Favorite part about Ingmar from Peter's point of view? He's simply strange. He is free-spirited to a fault, like letting car to drive by itself if he feels like it. He pretends to know everything but knows nothing. And it is fun to watch. There is a good part of Peter written into the character except for the mustache. He would never wear it. But with time, Ingmar turned into its own separate entity, leaving Peter behind. The TV series was cancelled after its second season, which aired in 2018. While no official reason for the cancellation was announced, it is common for shows to end due to its decline in viewership, production costs, or strategic changes by the network or streaming platforms. The show, which originally aired on Swedish Vplay and later on Pop TV in US, received mixed reviews from critics, with some praising the chemistry between the lead actors Peter Stormare and Johan Glans, but others felt that the show's humor and storytelling were inconsistent. Crime thriller The Assassin's Code. Low-budget crime where Peter played Kurt Schlichter. Movie did not do well at the box office. With $1.8 million budget, it made just $54,000 worldwide. With its limited theatrical release, the movie shortly went straight to the video-on-demand services and yet to find its core audience. Another comedy TV series where Peter decided to stay for a while called LA to Vegas. Actually, the entire season with 15 episodes in total. He played a character called Artyom, who is one of the regulars on the Jackpot Airlines flights between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. He is portrayed as somewhat eccentric, oddball figure, often adding humor to the show's chaotic flight scenarios. Artyom is involved in various subplots, such as teaching other characters how to play poker, and even performing a dental procedure during one of the flights. Artyom is quirky, low-level bookmaker, was one of the show's most memorable and humorous supporting characters. Video game Elder Scrolls Online Somerset, voice of King Jerome. Mystery thriller indie film Beyond the Sky as Peter Norton, unfortunately bombing at the box office with just $20,000 revenue against $1.5 million budget. Most of the earnings came from the release in Ukraine and Russia. Comedy crime TV series Get Shorty. In my opinion, one of the best shows in its genre. For 7 episodes, Peter played Hedvig Snæjørsen, uncompromised movie director who takes no shortcuts and no for an answer in pursuit of his vision, ultimately ruining 2 wannabes filmmakers' crooks' career. Coming-of-age comedy romance Age of Summer. Peter is playing rock god, the one who knows it all and can provide philosophical guidance. The story follows a teenager boy, Minnesota, who navigates the challenge of youth while training to be a junior lifeguard. Critics praised the movie, but audience wasn't interested, like at all. 3 episodes in animated TV series Milo Murphy's Law, voice of Tobias Trollhammer.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Video game Call of Duty Black Ops 4, voice of The Replacer. 8 episodes in animated series Castlevania, voice of Godbrand.
May I speak to you?
2019. Thriller The Poison Rose with John Travolta and Morgan Freeman. Peter plays the role of Slide Osler, a morally ambiguous, somewhat comical yet dangerous figure. While the movie did not receive overwhelmingly positive reviews, many found Peter Stormare's performance a standout in the film, as he brought his signature edge and unpredictability to the role. Critics and audience gave the movie a couple of face slaps and moved on, earning only $324,000 at the box office internationally, marking it a commercial failure. John Travolta and Morgan Freeman can carry a movie only so far. It needs a better story and better dialogues. German music video Lindemann, Steh auf, in himself. Fun to watch and listen to. Peter was awesome rocking that guitar on stage. And Lindemann Frauenmann. Peter is a captain on space station. Could not shake the feeling of rewatching Armageddon, but nevertheless, fun little video clip with catchy music. 2020. One episode in crime drama TV series Briar Patch as Gunther. Single episode in cartoon Teen Titans Go. Voice of Phoebe Long.
Did you come to oversee our operation?
Video game Fast and Furious Crossroads. Voice of Ormstride. Japanese drama Gift of Fire. Voice of Albert Einstein. The story of World War II era Japanese scientists involved in atomic bomb research. The film focuses on ethical dilemmas they faced, as well as the harsh realities of science when used for destructive purposes. One episode in TV cartoon series Animaniacs as Nickelwise.
Are you scared?
Dark thriller Sunbird. Peter plays Emmett Harland, an authoritarian figure in the society where people who have been infected by the virus are detained in quarantine zones. Harland works for a private corporation that enforces strict control over the population. Movie made only $620,000 worldwide with its close to $2 million budget. Everyone was tired of coronavirus by then, and critics and audience suspected filmmakers were exploiting the ongoing pandemic as financial vehicle to box office success. 2021 animated movie Cryptozoo, voice of Gustav. American Gods, what a treat of a TV series. Season 1 was one of the finest show around. Peter played one of the old gods, Chernobog, Slavic god of darkness and death, for 7 episodes. He was one scary, angry god with a sledgehammer who missed his days of blood and glory. Word of advice, do not play checkers with him. Comedy drama The Grand Duke of Corsica. Peter played the Grand Duke of Corsica himself, an eccentric billionaire who commissioned to build a mausoleum in 90 days during epidemic. The movie was mostly distributed over streaming services. Critics and audience could not connect with the characters, but the movie had its moments. Movie Horror Noir. It is 6 horror stories from directors and screenwriters in a single film. Peter plays Erebus, another streaming service product, and audience is heavily leaning towards nay verdict. 7 episodes in Swedish horror TV series The Box as Jedediah Bragg. The series about Kansas City police officer who experiences a supernatural nightmare after getting obsessed with ongoing investigation. 2022 comedy drama Food and Romance is another Peter's favorite movie made in Sweden. It's about giving a chance to yourself and others, take a leap and try something spontaneous. No matter the age, life has just begun. Critics' reception has been positive, particularly for its fresh perspective on late life romance and the performance, but the audience reviews, however, were not as kind. Movie had a limited theatrical release and made just $80,000 worldwide. Video game Destiny 2 The Witch Queen, voice of Arak Jalal. 1 episode in comedy drama series Chivalry as Garth, the investor for a desperate producer. Video game The Elder Scrolls Online High Isle, voice of Kim Jong-un. vampire horror comedy Day Shift, with Jamie Foxx in the lead. Peter plays Troy, who runs a bounty trading place of vampire fangs. This is Netflix movie with $100 million budget, so obviously it reported awesome earnings from the viewership. Nobody can verify that. As for the movie, it was fun to watch, easygoing action comedy. Thriller The Hitler's File, audio drama, which imagines, based on the real history, a relationship between Adolf and his reluctant personal psychotherapist. Animated cartoon A Very Cold War Christmas, voice of Vladimir Putin.
Today, we take it back!
The story goes as following. When Santa Claus refuses to give Ukraine to Vladimir Putin as a Christmas present, the Russian president sends his armed forces against the North Pole to denazify it. 2023, TV series 1923, Peter plays small part of Luca in one episode. Thriller The Ritual Killer as Captain Marshall. It is a story of detective who is on the verge of retirement, teams up with the professor of African studies to track down a serial killer who is performing an ancient black magic practice. Movie had a budget of $17 million, but despite featuring notable stars, it struggled at the box office, earning only about $320,000. Critics were on a rampage with its plot and pacing, whooping 11% approval. Video game The Elder Scrolls Online, Necrom, voice of King Jerome. Year of 2024, 1 episode in TV series Tracker as Waltz. 7 episodes in Twilight of the Gods, voice of Ulfer.
Held it back.
Action movie Kill 'Em All 2 as Agent Holman. Jean-Claude Van Damme, a retired spy who is once again forced into action when a vengeful Russian-French terrorist Vlad comes after him. Basically, it's a direct-to-video action sequel. The movie is playing now on streaming services near you. With its 4 out of 10 rating, it's mostly for Van Damme hardcore fans and supporting actors to make a living. Ooh, I have to hurry up with the video before Peter makes yet another film. Well, it's a joke, of course. Peter's characters usually die in movies, and he's cool with that. He doesn't wish to keep coming back for sequels. A brief, spectacular appearance is better than dreadful return for another cash grab. It's no secret that almost everyone wants to play a bad guy, but not everyone is as accepted as he is for it. Take Harrison Ford, for example. He always wanted to do dark, really dark characters, but movies wouldn't sell, so he bounces back to the role audiences expect of him. This isn't a problem for Peter. The darker, the better. He enjoys adding more layers to his menace and welcomes the opportunity to keep it coming. Also, the whole concept of typecasting is over-exaggerated. 99% of actors are typecast. It's easier that way for producers, directors, and the audience. It's safer for box office numbers as well. Only a few actors have skill to play the full range of emotions. Movie making is still a business, and studios will stick to formulas to print more money. We have finally arrived at Peter's third lucky star, and it's of his own making. He does not just come on stage and read a line. To him, every character needs a distinct twitch, some intricate detail that makes the performance unique. It's something that audience will notice and latch onto, eagerly awaiting what may come next, often forgetting about the lead. Peter Stormare makes movies not for the fame or money, but because he truly believes in his craft. He puts his heart and soul into each performance. He loves to work and is still very busy within the industry. He doesn't ask for an astronomical paycheck. It comes secondary, as a means to support himself and his family. Passion for films comes first. The bad habits of Hollywood never interested him. No drugs, no smoking, just the occasional beer or wine. He does have to smoke for real in some movies, and though it often makes him sick, as Peter would say, even if you die from it while making movie, it was worth it. These days, Peter Stormare has the luxury of walking out of auditions he finds stupid. When a casting director asks if he can deliver a line, Peter simply responds with, "Go watch my 200+ movies and decide for yourself. I got no time for this." It doesn't mean he wouldn't still audition for some big-name producers and directors, but he is no longer willing to lick their behinds anymore, just their boots. Hey, this is a joke that Peter made himself. What was the most embarrassing role Peter ever played? It was in Big Lebowski when Peter played Carl Hungus, a mini-adult film played on TV, a cable repair guy. During the break, he was sitting right across of Asia Carrera, famous adult movie star who played the part of one of the girls. She did not bother to cover private parts, and Peter recalls how awkward it was maintaining eye contact and keep casual conversation. He actually had no idea who she was until he visited her website per Asia's suggestion. By the way, fans all over the world still have one burning question. Did Carl fix the cable? Peter has an answer to that, but I will leave it out of this video, too much graphic. Peter is mostly recognized for his Constantine and Armageddon roles. People from all over the world rushing in to meet him and shouting the lines from the movies. Russian part, American part, it is all made in Taiwan. This is how we fix things in Russia. When asked what role he personally would like to be recognized for, the answer is to be a human being. His biggest hope is that his last movie that he will ever do will be his absolute favorite. He still wants to direct a few movies based on scripts that he carries around anywhere he goes, preferably few comedies, and also produce a few stages. Not to be on stage, but direct. He wants to focus on his own interpretation of life. The last chapter will be dedicated to myself, says Peter. What does Peter think of various acting methods? In short, most of it is phony BS. You can only afford to do all of that if you have time on your hands. Peter believed in Stanislavski's method because it was raw and closer to how real people behave. Having started his acting career in theater, Peter learned quickly that when you are performing in front of an audience every night, there is no time to waste. Over 10 years of theater work, Peter did more plays than most American actors over their entire lifetime. Many British actors excel because of their theater background, and for Peter, there was no such thing as typecasting. A theater actor has a wide range of roles scheduled throughout the week, anything from Macbeth or Hamlet or comedies or children's plays. Sometimes the only thing he would worry about was whether he was in the right costume before going on stage. Peter much preferred to make the audience cry rather than trying to evoke emotion by thinking about a lost imaginary dog. He believed that such tricks cheapened the performance and devalued it. For him, the key was to be on the verge of crying, but never shed a tear. It was the audience's job to decide, to imagine the tragedy, happiness, loss, or joy. You shouldn't spell everything out because the audience isn't dumb. Peter believes that the lack of proper theatrical experience limited modern actors from doing their best. Instead of trying to feel the emotions first, you need to practice, make mistakes, and learn until you get it right. For Peter, acting was a magical performance of teasing the audience into believing that they were watching a real world, a real character with real feelings. That's how you make the audience invest in a character. You make them believe that you're in actual danger, battling with deep drama, or simply happy to be there. It's the magic of truly connecting with the audience through your craft. Peter calls all the acting schools in LA a fraudulent business, claiming they're all about making money rather than teaching real skills. More and more people continue flocking to their schools, spending their last pennies, only to leave in 2 years without knowing the first thing about acting. According to Peter, Those schools are more focused on how to audition rather than how to actually act. Peter loves hanging around ordinary people, as that's where he feels the most at home. He comes from a similar background and enjoys the simplicity of everyday's life. This is one of the reasons why he wouldn't live in Beverly Hills or attend extravagant parties there, engaging in all the pretentious activities that comes with it. He can't stand people who brag about their wealth, often calling them effing idiots. In fact, Peter has little to no interest in people who parade their possessions. He has just one car, a small house, and too many bathrooms, which is all he needs for his family, his wife Toshimi and their 2 kids. Toshimi, who is from Japan, is an excellent chef, and Peter feels life doesn't get any better than that. Peter and Toshimi met in New York, where Peter spoke little Japanese and Toshimi had no English whatsoever. Luckily, his manager knew someone proficient in both languages, and this connection solved many communication issues. Eventually, Peter and Toshimi got married, and they have been together ever since. Peter loves Japan and everything about the country. When he first had to leave his homeland to pursue opportunities elsewhere, he had a feeling something significant would happen, and his sixth sense was right. He met his future wife from Japan. As for friends, Peter's only friend in Hollywood is Keanu Reeves, and it makes perfect sense. Keanu shares the very same approach to fame and money, preferring to keep things simple and grounded, much like Peter. Peter's main focus in life is to fulfill his dreams, not to accumulate material possessions like toys and jewelry. He believes that movie carries a simple but powerful message. It is never too late. Forget about all the negativity, and especially the pressure of what your neighbors or society might think. Instead, focus on listening to yourself and discover what you truly want. When you learn to love yourself, you are then able to spread love to others. This has been Peter's mission in life, to spread light and maintain basic humanity. It is interesting to Peter how many actors who often portray the worst characters on screen are actually wonderful people in real life. On the other hand, the so-called good guys or heroes can sometimes be the exact opposite. I recall watching The Boys TV series and thinking how accurately it reflects this, how the people who are perceived as the best often turn out to be the absolute worst. Peter's biggest fear is that he might die an old, grumpy man who never took the chance to try things out while he had the opportunity. He doesn't want to live with regrets. He believes that if you think long and hard enough about a wish, it will eventually come true. This belief is coming from someone who was born in the small village of Kumla, Sweden, and ended up in West Hollywood with a successful acting career that could fill several lifetimes. No one else from his village made it out like he did. It's the power of dreams, and it feels almost unreal to Peter, especially when he takes the time to write another page of his autobiography, reliving every step of his journey, a journey that seems nothing short from a miracle. Peter is also a musician and part of a band called Blondie from Fargo. He writes both music and lyrics. As he would say, "I'm married to the movie, but my mistress is music." It is something like therapy for Peter. He sits by himself and creates another track free of anybody else's directive, influence, and judgment. Even though he is not as good at any particular instruments, these are Peter's words, he loves to play them all and make music that sounds strange and even crazy, but that's all him. It is his music. One of his favorite pastime is having red wine and watching old footage of various bands on YouTube, often forgetting that it is time to sleep. And it is music only. He has no desire to watch movies, neither at home nor in the theaters. Just can't picture himself sitting for 2 hours and watching something for that long. Peter is a man of faith. As he recalls, his very first book was in fact the Bible. When he was a boy, he went over the neighbor's house with a Bible in his hand and asked if he could bless their food. His mother and father weren't exactly thrilled by such move, but despite their embarrassment, they decided to let him continue with his cause. And what do you know? The neighbors actually loved it. Although sometimes as a boy, he would act rather weird, staring over the hills and telling his parents that he came down to this place by chance, and that they aren't really his parents. I guess his parents were a little concerned about Peter's mental well-being. No worries, this was just his imagination kicking in. He loved to daydream a lot. He would go as far as mentioning voices leading him to the right places and making the right decisions. Is there an afterlife? Of course there is, at least for me, says Peter, or else we wouldn't be here and go through this strange journey on Earth. It is so obvious to him but rather hard to explain. It would have been an extremely boring life for Peter to live and not believe. Same goes for UFOs and aliens. Do they exist? Why not? Life is so much more fun if I believe in all that. Peter truly believes that anything and everything is possible. Perhaps this is exactly what makes Peter a delight to watch. A delicious dessert in any movie, the cherry that makes the cake. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time.
For the first time in my sad life, I'm not alone in this world. Now I have someone to come home to. That's my baby darling, come. That's my baby darling, come. I love you, baby darling. Ah.